It's just 12 now, folks. We'll give the last couple of people I'm expecting just another minute or two to get in, and then we'll get started. I am recording this session, so just so you're kind of aware of that. And I've got you all on mute at the moment. If you want to ask a question verbally, you're going to need to unmute yourself, and I'll see you do that, or you can use the hand up feature if you open the participant list. You'll see a way to put your hand up, or if you click on your name, I think actually is where that lives. But you'll be able to find the hand up button there as well. So we'll give a few more people a few more minutes, and then we'll get going. You can also post questions in the chat window, which will allow me to read them out to the group. We'll give Kristen just another minute to log back in. She must have logged out by accident. All right, it's 5 after. Let's get started, and then we can always have a kind of a catch up if people miss pieces at the beginning here. So thanks to everybody for making some time in your schedule. As I said, this meeting is being recorded. You're on mute, so you'll either need to unmute yourself or put up your hand and I can unmute you, or send your questions by text as we go through. This is the first presentation of this, so I'm going to try to take a few notes on what I have to add in terms of questions so that I can do next week's, hopefully, and address those the first time through. But thanks everyone for coming in. So the context of this is that since I've been here, the association has been, or members have been giving us feedback that the mentorship process to address those that don't have accredited degrees wasn't working. So the registration committee and the board have been looking at this issue now for 2.5 years, with lots of work in the sort of last 12 months, which has resulted in new policy being deployed. Fundamentally, the goals of the actual redo were to better align our non-accredited degree program to BC and Ontario and what they're doing, to reduce the difficulty and complexity of that process and make it more understandable. So today I'm really just going to focus on what was the mentorship program. If there's questions about internship, which hasn't really changed, I can address those as well. Just a reminder, if you want to ask a question, either put it in the chat box, put up your hand, or unmute yourself and just go ahead and ask. And so again, this policy has been passed. The board looked at it and approved it June 26th, and this is the first of a number of sessions that we'll be looking at to explain the process to everybody and address any questions in terms of how to navigate this new process. So fundamentally, where we're at now is two parallel processes. Accredited degrees, meaning those degrees which are accredited by CSLA or ASLA, so that's the LAB and the LAAB, as always, go directly into internship. After their internship, they go to jury, and presuming they're successful, they get their stamp. Non-accredited degrees are any degree that aren't within those actually there's three. We also recognize degrees from the Landscape Institute, which is the United Kingdom. That's the third group. So if you have an accredited degree, you take the process, which has not changed. If you have a non-accredited degree, so you're a diploma holder from NATE, you have a degree in environmental design or science from BC, maybe you're a high school grad, frankly. Anyone who does not hold an accredited degree goes into the non-accredited degree process, which adds what is now called a pre-internship period. So basically, the overview of the process changes in the new policy. First of all the different policies were collapsed into a single policy, which is the pre-licensure. So that pre-licensure addresses your entire time as an associate, whether you're initial applicant, pre-internship, or an intern, right up to the point you have your stamp. It's a single policy in one document that has lots of sections. That policy is now available on the website if you want to read it in detail. You can find it in any number of areas. It shouldn't be hard to find. If you find any other old policy, please let me know, and I'll go through and remove them from the website. So initial application, we've reduced the emphasis on references at this point. So basically, you used to have to give us your accredited degree, 2 references, and we were asking for your CV in most cases. So you'll still have to give us your CV. We'll still want your accredited transcripts. What we don't need anymore is references. Most of the references we get at this initial application phase are primarily from teachers or far less formal connections, because most people will not have done a lot of work. So we're no longer requiring references at that point. Where you will give references is when you're finished your internship and you're ready to go to the jury, you've got a work experience behind you. That's the point at which you will give us references, because you'll have had time to establish credibility as a professional. And I will do your administrative approval. So for initial application, I will review your CV and your transcripts and determine whether or not you're accredited or not accredited. And I will then request additional, and I will admit you as an associate. You'll pay your initial fees, and I will then collect additional documentation from you to fulfill the requirements of either pre-internship or intern application. At that point, you'll be asked to give us more documentation, and that's when the committee will review your full file. If you're an accredited degree holder, not decree, nice, that's my first typo of this presentation, probably not the last. No significant changes here. The only thing we've changed is your advisor and supervisor will sign off an official form that says they understand what their role is and what the requirements of that undertaking are, and they will have to seal that with their stamp. A, that will help us to identify that they do have a valid stamp, and B, it will ensure that they fully and completely understand what they're getting into, which and it creates some clarifications around expectations, especially as it has to do with reviewing your supervised professional practice. You'll notice that we don't use the term experience logs at all. Experience is what you got before you started the program. Once you're in program, we consistently use the term supervised professional practice to create an understanding for people that it's not the same. This is a period where you're under specific review by professionals, and they're attesting that your hours are accurate and that they reflect your work. So it's different than experience, and we've tried to be really consistent about that use of language. So the mentorship process. So basically in this case, we've determined there's a non-accredited degree. It's not on one of the lists, so you're going to do pre-internship. So once we determine that you're a pre-intern, we're going to double check you have the required experience. So to enter pre-internship, you will have to have 2 years of related experience. And the committee will review if it's straightforward, you've been working in a landscape architecture firm or a design build firm, it'll be obvious and I will be able to do that. If it's something unusual, the committee will review it. You're going to do a competency evaluation and a portfolio evaluation as part of this process. So how does this all work? Again, initial application, you're going to give a CV and a resume and your official transcript and parchment. This is a change. We are going to require the official transcripts to be on file. We get asked quite a bit lately to provide those to other boards when we certify you for reciprocity or transfer. And so we're going to now require that they be official transcripts, and I will then keep a certified digital copy that's got the organization seal on it. So if we need to provide them to a third party, they should get accepted, as I'll attest that I saw the original. At that point, I will look at that and either funnel you into internship or pre-internship, provided you have that 2 years of experience. If you have less than 2 years experience, you'll be admitted as an affiliate until you achieve your 2 years of pre-entry experience. So the committee is going to hold people to that to ensure that there's enough. And the reason for this 2 years of related experience is to address the full diversity of the types of non-accredited degrees we could possibly see. And when we get into the hours chart, you'll understand that there's quite a lot more than people really understand or think about. So once we've slotted you into, you've got a non-accredited degree, you've got 2 or more years of experience, you're going to nominate your advisor and supervisor at that point. So you'll fill in the form. They'll both seal that and return it to us so they understand what they're getting into, and the committee chair or registrar will review and approve that those nominations are suitable. They have to have a stamp for more than 5 years. In the case of the advisor, the supervisor just needs to be your boss. I've never seen one refused. Most people make great decisions in this area, so it's not likely to be a problem, but that will be the first step. Once they're approved, then you're going to work on your competency tool and your portfolio. And your competency tool is currently it's a 4-page Excel spreadsheet where you're going to talk about your formal education, your informal education, the work you've been doing, and create a picture of where you're at so that the committee can get a sense of how many hours you need to do pre-internship. The intent of pre-internship is to replace your missing education. And so if you think of it as like informally going back to school to gain the required experience so you can be an intern. And that'll be important when we talk about the LAREs. So basically, you're going to submit your competency tool and your portfolio. Now, eventually, there will be a shorter version of the tool for related degrees, what we're going to call. Nate, for example, a lot of the environmental design from a lot of the schools will become related as we review them, and there'll be a shorter tool for those folks in future. We'll be developing that tool in the fall. So anyone who's going through this process between now and probably Christmas will be using the long form tool, which has a lot more rigor. Once we've got those pieces in, the oversight committee will review your degree relevance. So do you have a degree in dentistry, or do you have a degree in environmental design from, maybe you have a master's in environmental design or urban planning from U of C. Depending on their determination of relevance, you'll go into sort of one of two categories in terms of hours. They'll look at your resume and your CV, see where you've been working. They'll look at your competency tool and see what you've been up to in terms of projects and experience, and they'll look at your portfolio of actual work. From all of that information, they will assign you a number of supervised professional practice hours. So you'll not have to suggest educational requirements. You're not going to have to pick courses. All you're going to do is submit where you're at. The committee is going to give you a number of practice hours to complete. They may adjust those hours. So for example, maybe your related degree is in horticulture. Well, they're probably going to reduce the number of plant selection and plant related hours you need and maybe give you extra design hours. So they may adjust that if you, depending on what the nature of your related degree is. So when we talk about these hours, there's four main categories that we're going to look at. Related degrees, so you've got a 4-year degree or a master's degree, which could be obviously less than 4 years, and 2 to 4 or 4 or more years of experience. From that, they're going to assign you 3,600 hours. 3,600 hours is roughly 2 years of practice. It depends on the firm. So in some firms, if you're working 10, 20 hours of overtime a week, you can knock that out faster. If you're working in a government job where you maybe are only working 32 and a half hours a week at a city, it may take you more than 2 years, which is why we use hours as a leveler. We don't use years because not everyone works the same number of hours in a week, and we want to credit the actual work time. Related diploma. So this is where if you're a NAIT graduate, you're going to go into related diploma. NAIT's already on the list. The list is in the policy. If you want to go check it out, you can see which ones we've already reviewed in the first round. And that period is going to be somewhere between 4 and 6 years. Again, depending on the relevant experience. We had one candidate in the first round that had 14 years of relevant experience. She got a reduction. So this is a maximum. You can get less hours. If you have 10 or 15 years experience and you're applying with a related degree, there is a possibility the committee may further reduce your hours requirements, respecting the fact that you have significant experience. And that's where that competency tool and portfolio are going to be really important. That's going to be what we look at to determine whether or not you further deserve reduction. So these are maximums, not minimums. They can go lower. Related international degrees and diplomas are slightly longer, but consistent with other programs. And unrelated international or unrelated in general has the maximum hours, which is 14,004, which is about 8 years of practice before they start an internship. So if you have an unrelated degree, so you have a degree in dentistry or a high school diploma, you would do 8 years of supervised professional practice. Sorry, you'd have 2 years of experience to enter the program, 8 years of professional practice, and then do your 2-year internship. So it's a significant undertaking. And part of that is because accredited degrees are still the preferred access point to licensure. We don't want to make it so easy to take other options that people are avoiding school in that regard. However, many mid-career professionals that have lots of experience, especially our NAIT grads that may have 5, 10, 15 years, they're probably going to see a lower hour assignment from the 7,200. So keep that in mind, the committee, and this is something that will evolve over time as we see applications and we get a sense of where people are at. Once you've got your hours of supervised professional practice, just like as an intern, you just go ahead and start working towards completing them. You fill in your logs online, starting in the system will be up in August. So you'll do online logging, you'll do online submission to your advisor supervisor. They will review those hours and approve them and meet with you to talk about how you're progressing and where you need to focus time and energy. And they may work together to add opportunities for you. In the pre-internship process, we've also added a recognition of formal education. So if you choose to go to, say, University of Calgary and take a course, or University of Alberta or NAIT to gain some additional education, what you'll do is you'll discuss that course with your advisor, and there's another typo. You will then go and take your course, and then there's a form at the end of that where you'll provide us with the description of the course, the syllabus information, so we know what you learned, your grades, and you will basically submit that on a form to us. And what you'll do is you'll say, maybe it's a 5-credit course. consistent with our CEP, you're going to get 65 hours, I think, for that. You'll have to check the form. And what you'll do is then you'll allot those hours plus your study time. So if you had a huge amount of study to pass that course, you can add that in as well. So then you're going to say you're going to claim 100 hours of credit. In that form, you're going to allot that based on what the course was actually about. So maybe it was entirely about horticulture and plants. You can allot all 100 hours to plant selection, or maybe it was a more general studio class and you did all sorts of work, and you're going to put that into a number of categories. You get to allocate where they do that. Your advisor will sign off on it, and you'll submit it to the committee for approval. If it's approved, I will go in onto your hours log, and I will put a special log in to that quarter or month that says that it's an administrative log, so that if someone's looking at your logs in detail, they'll see that I've administratively approved that, and that's how you'll get credit. This is only available to pre-interns. Interns cannot take advantage of this option. So your hours are finished. You've done your, let's say, 3,600 hours of supervised professional practice. You're ready to progress to internship. What you will do is you will do a letter from your advisor attesting that they think you're at the same level as a graduate of an accredited program. You'll update your CV and resume, your competency tool, and your portfolio and resubmit them. You will do this again when you apply for your stamp, even though regular interns don't do this process. And the reason for that is the committee wants to see where you started, where you were at the end of pre-internship, and then where you were at the end of your internship, to see that progression of skill and knowledge. And that's going to be a major way that we refine this system over time. Maybe we're asking for too many hours. Maybe we're not asking for enough hours. Maybe we need to focus hours in different categories to help progression. And so that's what we'll start to see from that information. The committee will review that, approve you to start your internship. As soon as you're approved, you'll immediately start. You'll start your last 3,600 hours of supervised professional practice, and you will pass the LARs. The LARs are not available to pre-interns. You cannot work on your LARs in Alberta until you have completed the pre-internship process. And the reason for that is the requirement right now for the LAREs is that you hold an accredited degree from whatever state or province you're involved in. So the committee's decision, and the board supported, is that pre-internship is like finishing your education. I said that would be important later. So until you're done your pre-internship, you're not technically covered off your educational requirements. So in Alberta, we're not going to let you access the LARE. Fast and dirty. Questions? There must be questions. There's always questions. And I'll jump back and forth as various slides that might be relevant. I can also pull up forms or paperwork if that helps clarify. So again, type questions, unmute yourself and ask your question. There must be questions. Tara and Ingrid, I see you there. Ingrid, if you want to ask questions, you can ask questions too. No questions? There must be questions. Sure. So I'm just going to run back to the beginning here. So Kristen's asked about the first 5 minutes. And Chris is asking about submission deadlines. So yeah. So basically, as I said, the pre-licensure process replaces, so Kristen, I'm not sure where you jumped in. So just to quickly re-overview, pre-licensure replaces mentorship, as you know. Non-accredited degrees will do a pre-internship. Initial application no longer requires references, and that I will review those. Kristen, just stop me when I'm caught up. Accredited degree holders, no changes. You're doing what you've done the way you've done. We just add an additional form for your advisor supervisor. The mentorship program is gone, and now we're doing pre-internship based on experience, competency, and portfolio. And then I walked through how it works. Did I catch everything you missed, Kristen? Perfect. Okay, Chris has asked about deadlines. So the deadlines for submission are on the website. If you go to board and then the registration committee, you'll find all of the submission deadlines on there. What we will require is if you're submitting your competency and portfolio tools, you must have them in to me not less than 3 weeks prior to the meeting date. So the next meeting date is August the 16th. So you would have to have your submission in the last week of July because the committee needs several weeks to review the competency tools. They're very robust. It takes, according to several of the what were mentors I talked to, it takes them 30 to 40 hours to help you write those competency tools. So plan for at least a week of back and forth, and then you're going to need, and the committee needs a few weeks to go through them. So it's going to be a long timeline in that period, and I will remind you of that. So the next submission deadline for those is going to be, like I say, roughly the last week of July. I'd have to look at it, grab the calendar to give you an exact date. But the actual dates of committee meetings are posted up through the end of 2020, and I will be adding the 2021 dates over the summer. So there's lots of notice to what those dates are. Good question. Ingrid, you had a question.
Yeah, I had, it looks nice and clear to me, so thanks, Todd. I always find your stuff clear. I wondered, what you talked about maximum hours. Do you have something kind of in the background of a plan of what minimum hours will be, or is that truly just up to the board to decide? They could potentially say, this person has so much experience, they don't need anything.
Exactly right. And that's the intent of the maximum hour system.
Okay.
I have at least 1 or 2 applicants that have 15 and 20 years experience and a related degree. When they hit us, it'll be the first test case where we look at those and go, maybe this person doesn't need any further education. And that's why we use the maximum, to give the committee the flexibility to waiver the entire pre-internship process.
Okay, great. Thanks. And then when they're looking, you mentioned about the horticulture, if you've got a horticultural degree, you probably need less planting, but more design. Do they have an outline of what they do, or is that going to be just almost a little bit learned? They'll see who comes in and say, this is what, I just didn't know if they've got a plan for that, because that sounds a little, complicated if you're doing it for each person to go through each thing. I just didn't know if the committee members, and also I wondered if they're doing it, one by one, is just to make sure that they had a consistent method to use. I'd be interested in how they did that.
Yeah, I'm just looking now. There is a list of prescribed hours in each of the categories. I can't exactly remember which policy document it's in. Otherwise, I'd pull it up real quickly. So they do have assigned hours already within categories. And our expectation is it's going to be pretty obvious that an entire section is probably no longer relevant, but a corresponding section will need all of those hours. But yeah, right now it's on a case-by-case basis because it's a totally new process.
Yeah.
And as we build a sort of a context over time, we'll start to document, same as what a related degree is. Right now, there's like 3 listed because that's how many applicants we've reviewed. Yeah, and so what we'll probably do is, as we build the context, we'll start to document precedent and how we did it. So that's sort of our plan at this point.
Great, thanks.
You bet. Kristen is asking about the Excel log until August when one goes live. I can send you an Excel template if you want. Kristen, just send me an email. I'll reply immediately. Or you can pull up the list of required areas of competence from the policy document and just make your own. Just remember that your logs need to be not less than monthly. And it's between you and your advisor to decide what level of rigor you want to use. So you can use some interns and now pre-interns are literally logging day by day by day. So each day generates 7 or 8 hours, and they do it at the end of each workday. Some people are doing it weekly, and some people are doing monthly. So it really depends how you and your advisors want to. Yeah, it's between your advisors to decide what that preference is. We are saying you cannot do less than a monthly submission of the hours, just because that's the minimum we need in terms of the system requirements to work properly. Applicants that are currently under review, there's 3 that have been approved and have hours assigned. Genevieve, I think in your case, you're sitting at, there's an additional document that we didn't get from you initially that we are going to, or that we did get that we need to do some more work on, and I need to follow up with you on that. I will zap you off an email later today. We changed the competency tool from the first round to the second round, and it's going back to sort of a hybrid in the middle. And I need to get some additional information. It's basically the advisors need to have reviewed that before it's submitted now. We went through a period where we didn't need that, and we're back to wanting that just slightly differently. So we'll be doing an update for that. All new applicants, of which there are several, will do the full tool in the final format until we get the shortened tool down. And those hours will then be reviewed at the August meeting and assigned at that point. So there will never be hours assigned until the actual committee date, because there's committee discussion is going to happen in each case. But I do need to get a little bit of information. So basically, for those of you that have been admitted to the mentorship program, but I've been holding, can now send me an email. I will send you the 3 documents I need to have done. I can get you started so that you can get moving into your process in preparation for the August 16th meeting. There are about 12 to 14 of you right now in that holding pattern. And so we're going to want to get you started. Any other questions? Seeing and hearing none, I want to thank everyone for your participation. That was actually much more efficient than I thought it would be. So because you've been here this week, next week's presentation is going to be the same content. I may add just a small amount based on today's questions. So you do not need to attend again unless you think of questions that you'd hope to ask and you wanted to ask them in person. Or you can just give me a phone call. But it will not be a different presentation next week. So if you've attended this week, there's no need to attend next week. I will probably hold this recording and then see how next week's go, and I'll pick the more robust question period and then only post one live. All right. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you taking time out of your lunch hour, or for those of you in the East and the West, your afternoons and mornings. Have a great day. Ingrid and Tara, I'd love some feedback on how you thought this went. This was my first crack at a Missy style webinar, so love to hear some feedback. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.